first speaker this afternoon, and this is no other than Mr. Oliver Tian. So Oliver is a renowned international speaker who wears many hats, one of which is as our advisor for APARA. He's written many articles with several journals and has held top positions in various organizations in this area. So, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about the rise of quantum AI and robotics, please welcome, and please get ready with your emojis, Mr. Oliver Tian.
Thanks, Al. Thanks very much for those kind words, and thanks everyone for all the greetings. Certainly appreciate it, and it has been a great pleasure to be able to support AIBotics and APARA as a whole, putting together all the experiences that I've accumulated over time to kind of help move technology forward. It has been very exciting, I must say, over this period, and it really gives me a chance to clearly be able to give back to society in many forms and many ways. So what I'm going to do actually is share with you some of the experiences that I learned from all around the world. And I mean learning from all around the world, it's both physically traveling as well as communicating with them through technology. And AIBotics is actually one great example of how that has happened. When Al was going through the number of countries that were involved in AIBotics, I did a quick count, and I noted that we have speakers from 16 different countries from Asia as well as Europe. And in terms of participants, we have participations from 35 countries all around the world. And this is really amazing because it gives us a great opportunity to fully understand what's happening around the world and how we can eventually make things happen, or at least learn from each other in the aspect of looking at technology. Now, when I was looking at how I could share a topic with this audience, I thought it would be useful to kind of explore something that is quite different. So with that in mind, I chose a topic called quantum AI and the potential of next generation robotics. Because I don't want to talk about what's going to happen today and what's being built in the labs. I want to look at what is beyond what we are thinking about. I want to look at what is possible and really to challenge the mind around the potential of what robotics can do for mankind. So quantum AI is something which is up and coming. There's a number of literature in the web. You can surf the web and find out more of it. I want to qualify that quantum AI is not that company that went to a legal situation, right? Quantum AI is to look at how quantum technology can support AI and advance AI to the next level. So, having said that, I think the human and robot relationship has been an interesting adventure. It's interesting because there are two stories that you hear in the media today, whether technology can support and assist the human beings in the work, or is it going to compete with human jobs? And there are probably reports that says that with automation and robotics, you end up seeing many jobs being displaced. So the question is, what do we see happening in future? My view is humans and robots will start to collaborate together in the next generation organization chart. I believe that in a short time to come, and we can define what the short time means, in a short time to come, we will see man and machine, humans and machines working together. Hence, the interface between machine and robots becomes so important because we need to be able to trust the machines as a co-worker working together. So let's kind of dive deep into this and see what does that mean. Now, I found this picture and I thought this was interesting. This is happening, all right? This is happening on the roads in China, right? What you see here is actually two forms of delivery service, right? In Jiangsu, what we are seeing is on the right side, you see two human beings who are career service delivery team, and they're in the midst of delivering their parcels. And next to the two bikers, you see this autonomous vehicle, which is also delivering, and they're working hand in hand together. Such activities will happen, or has actually happened, and we probably will see more and more of this as we move along. To make this happen, to see this happen in a very safe way, there are many, many considerations. Let's take a step back and look at what does that mean for us. The question is, do we have a choice? Right? Well, this is really a binary question. One is to say that we think this technology is going to affect us. We think things will happen and let it be, right? Or we could really embrace technology, take advantage and understand what's happening and use it to our favor. If some of you have been listening to me before and reading some of the articles I write, I try to basically convey a message that the more we are able to understand technology, the more we will be on our journey eventually to be masters of technology. And that is the way we should go. We should not put our head in the ground and say, no, I'm not worried about it. It won't affect me. In fact, we really have no choice. If we were to survive, if we want to make it good, we have to start to understand technology and be masters of technology. Let's look at a couple of charts. Earlier this year, in September, the International Federation of Robotics issued this report. And you can see the number of robots. And in this instance, we're just looking purely at industrial robots across the world, gradually and increasingly growing in numbers. We're looking at about 19% compound annual growth year after year. And that's quite amazing all the way through 2019. If I dive deeper into this, right, two countries stand out, Singapore and Korea, where the robot density is very high. Now, robot density is measured by the number of robots that has been deployed per 10,000 population. Of course, Singapore has a small population, hence the density is higher. China has a larger population, even though the actual quantum number of units of robots being deployed in China is higher, but the density could be lower. So it's one indicator over the other. But more importantly, if you look at the average number of units by the different geography, Asia stands up very strong with 118 over the rest of the world, and we are higher than the world average. Now, the International Federation of Robotics have been traditionally measuring manufacturing robots, and those are the numbers you see in the factories. They're starting to look at what is possible for the service robots, which is probably of more interest to many of us. Right? Of course, service robots are robots that we see that's able to perform tasks outside the industrial space, and this requires a lot more interesting design and interesting interface, and these are machines that can work hand in hand, side by side with the humans. Right? In the traditional industrial robots, we typically put a yellow box around it and say, don't go into the box. For safety reasons, stay outside the box and let the machine operate at its speed. But with service robots, we need to be able to touch, right? Hand things to them and they could hand things to us and allow us to actually be effectively co-working together with them. This means that the robots has to be a lot more intelligent. Now, let's understand a bit about the human strength and the robot strength, right? So here is a matrix that I try to pull together and understand where are the human strength and where are the human limitations, and compare that generally with robots' strength and weaknesses. This is not exhaustive, right? I'm sure you'll be able to find more information about such a comparison. But there are a few things we need to look at, right? There are certain strengths in the robot that we got to figure out how it can augment our human capability. And there's still certain limitations that we have where robots can play a part to support us and make us even better. There are, of course, a number of strengths, such as the hand-eye coordination, right, or flexibility and adaptability, where the robot may not be as good. And this is where we can play a part in leading the overall function of a human-machine collaboration model. So it is good to do this. It's good to understand how we can do this so that when we start to put intelligence into the robot, there's sufficient consideration. Now, this is where AI comes to play. Is AI the answer? Can AI be built into robots and help us understand what is possible? Can we, through the use and adoption of AI, make the robot a lot more intelligent? Yes, possible. And when we talk about putting intelligence into the machine, there are probably 4 different areas we can consider this. First of all, if human is in the loop, if human is participating in the process, then we can possibly have assisted intelligence or perhaps augmented intelligence, right? So augmented intelligence is where machines are able to help people with better decision making. Assisted intelligence is where machines actually perform some tasks, and because they perform some tasks faster and better, they perform those tasks and co-work together with us in other ways. We see a lot of this in the first quadrant here. We see some of the happenings around the augmented intelligence. And if I shift to the right, we look at automated intelligence and autonomous intelligence. And there's a differentiation between the two, right? Automated as in machines are able to process activities without human intervention. Autonomous simply look at just pure decision making. Well, looks like we may have the answer. So we are able to include AI into robots and create robotic intelligence. And this is a nice diagram that shows the different aspects of intelligence that the robot can acquire through the installations, through the deployment of AI technology into the machine. Right? And we see this in many, many forms today in different verticals in industry. But we all need to understand that when we try to build smart machines or intelligent machines or robotic machines with intelligence, we typically want to see 4 different capability, right? They should be able to extend human functions by helping us to do sensing, being able to understand some idea of what's happening, either through graphical representation or through natural language, be able to act, have a set of expert rules, or perhaps we talk a lot about machine learning, be able to become better and better and act accordingly. And finally, over time, the machine should get better. Just like a human, we are able to learn. Of course, we can throw in jargons like deep learning and neural nets and what have you. But the idea is we want intelligence to be able to sense and collect data, comprehend and understand and analyze the data, make decisions and act accordingly, and eventually become better over time. So with that, about a year back, the APARA committee felt that there was a need to really understand the whole thing of AI in robotics. Hence, we created the concept of AIBotics. And of course, AIBotics 2020 is happening this year. This is the 8th webinar that we're holding. And throughout the year, we have published a good number of articles in the local papers around the different aspects of AI and robotics playing a key role in the industry. Now, all these articles are available on our website, and that will be AIBotics.tech. So please feel free to go into the website, look for news, look for blogs, look for articles, AI articles, and there's a ton of other possible readings that you can look at. More importantly, we have also attached a number of very interesting reading to the links so that you can see what other people are thinking about. Now, AI, of course, become key, right? Because if AI can do all those things, and AI in robotics makes a lot of sense, what we are also seeing is that countries are starting to announce their AI strategies. So this is a map, and of course, this is as of end of last year, 2019, right? I'm sure this year, despite COVID-19, there are countries who are looking at it as well. The number of countries over the last 3 years that have stepped forward and announced their AI strategy. Right? Again, all this information is available on the web. Hence, it shows that countries are interested in understanding AI. Countries are interested in knowing how we can build capability, eventually to use this capability to develop technology that can support man. What's more interesting is that now we have the world's first AI university, a university dedicated to AI alone, and this is happening. This is installed in Abu Dhabi. And it's not like, oh, okay, you have got a university set up and nobody is interested. We have 2,223 applications from 97 countries who have stepped up, 97 nationalities coming from, and about 31 countries have been admitted in the first batch. And this is amazing. This is just amazing. The interim president, right, is Professor Sir Michael Bradley, formerly a professor with information engineering of Oxford University. So the world is definitely moving in the direction of understanding AI and how we can build robotic intelligence. This report is the State of AI 2020 and again available on the web. So, is AI that fantastic? Is AI really that good? There are a lot of marketing out there and media that tells a lot about AI and talk about how machines can be more intelligent. Many associate AI with machine learning. Now, I need to qualify that actually, based on what I believe, AI is not actually equals to machine learning. Machine learning is just one subset of AI, and there's a lot more technology involved than machine learning. Well, let's look at some of the strength of AI. Well, good AI is able to do thinking at a level same as the human or even surpass human because of its speed, because of its accuracy, because of its ability to access information. AI has been very key in engaging with abstract reasoning and thinking, and this is quite powerful, right? But if I look at these two conditions, today there's little evidence that this is happening, right? We don't have this today. In fact, what we have today is what we call weak or pattern-based AI. Weak AI or pattern-based AI is the ability to solve problems by detecting patterns. And machine learning just does that. It collects a lot of data, understands all the patterns, analyze it, and be able to grow and make decisions based on it. Of course, this is subjected to bias because if your data that you've collected has got biased data or a subset of the global data, then what happens is your decision making is going to be limited. The second is that we find that although AI has been able to automate process with great speed, and they can do singular things, one thing at a time. They're either good in driving, they're good machine language translation. They're very singular focus, right? There isn't one robot or AI that can do multiple things at one time. And we human beings are very good at that, right? This is where really the limitation of today's AI sits, and we're not able to go beyond dealing with multi-domains, multi-sector information, and multi-databases in order for us to be successful. There are a good number of cases whereby it's very domain-specific, right? DeepMind and the software that was able to beat the world Go expert, that's only the area that AI can achieve. It doesn't go beyond that. So why is that the case? Because I can summarize it into three major factors. Number one, today's AI is very data hungry. You take away the data, the AI application can't do much. Secondly, AI today is very narrow. Most of the applications are very specific, right? They cannot cross boundaries. Thirdly, we need AI to get stronger. We need AI to be emotionally more intelligent. There is that conscience, there is that feeling, that instinctive judgment that AI cannot achieve. If you recall, a few webinars back, we were talking about ethical intelligence, and this is the part which AI cannot differentiate today. So, having said all that, I pull up this chart, and I thought this was a nice little discussion that looks at what's happening around the world, right? We are seeing trends of activities happening, and we're seeing that many technologies are starting to converge. So if you look at the right-hand side, what you're seeing is that a lot of technology is coming together. They are doing very well, and AI is one of that technology that's working well with many other as technology that's emerging, and hence we're seeing great progress in adoption of technology, right? With 5G coming into play, I'm very sure very soon we will have even better technology. But I want to highlight one thing. There is a little emerging piece that's coming up, and that's quantum technology. Quantum technology has been around for 2 decades, very much in the lab, very expensive, takes out a lot of resources, but it is slowly emerging, and the combination of quantum together with AI will propel the innovation to the next level. So, what is quantum? Simply put, right, it is a different way of looking at the basic unit of the computer, basic unit of the byte representation. In the classical state, in the classical computer, you simply look at the on-off model. There are two states, 0 and 1, right? You either have nothing or you have a complete state. There's nothing in between. There's nothing fuzzy, right? Although there have been some discussion about fuzzy logic and what is made possible. Quantum, on the other hand, looks at the design of a qubit. And this qubit is very powerful because it has many other states. In fact, it has got the possibility of 2 to the power n representation. Let me go a bit deeper what quantum can do. So you have this, right? In the classical state, it's 0 or 1, right? It's on or off. But in the quantum representation, if the arrow is pointing up north, right? If the path is pointing up north, that's 1. It's pointing out south, that's 0. But in between, you have a whole matrix, a whole level of what representation can take place. So imagine the amount of data that can be collected and evaluated, and the amount of possibilities that can be considered. Looking at it further, right? This is what it means, right? In the classical state, you either have on, off, on, off. So in the first row, we're looking at 0, 0, 1, 1, 0. But in quantum, depending on how that particular qubit is flipped, you have a different set of permutation and a different set of data to be collected. Now, think through this, right? If we have this capability added on to the intelligence that we have in AI, the ability for us to develop new applications will propel and move entirely into a very different space. So what's the impact? Well, first of all, here are some ideas, right? Learning, right? Learning can move in leaps and bounds. Today's machine learning is very limited. Today's deep learning is also limited. But with the use of quantum, the algorithms that's built behind the learning applications will be able to have great improvements, and the speed of being able to achieve that will be amazing. Decision making, right? Sometimes it takes a while for the machine to process and come up with an outcome. But with quantum, we could achieve results in a lot more faster way. Now, for those of us who have done a bit of stats, the traveling salesman is a typical example of how we start to build logic and how we can try to establish the probability of achieving an outcome moving one point to another point. Now, the complexity of the traveling salesman is such that it takes you many permutations to calculate what are the possibilities. In quantum technology, you have the concept of a random walk. Now, random walk, like what the human will do, right? Imagine you go to the park and you want to get from one point to another point. In order for you to achieve getting one point, then you try all possible moves, right? Because you have only one choice to do it. In the case of quantum, and because of the different states that exist, you can do random selection of paths based on different probabilities. And by doing so, you can get to your destination a lot faster. And that's the amazing part of quantum technology. Search, I don't need to talk more about this, right? Given what I've just explained, it is quite clear that classical computing, right, already can outperform human. But imagine what quantum algorithms can do. And finally, for those of you who are in the game theory, you know what implication this has. When we try to run an application in game theory, it takes a long time. But with quantum, this is sped up in many forms. Have we been experimenting with this? Yes. It's complex. It's not simple. So here I'm trying to show you that quantum AI using quantum computing, right, can improve different algorithms that we see today and can help us look at future and potential opportunities. In fact, I believe in 1 decade, and simply 1 decade, 10 years, by 2030, AI could potentially run into a plateau because the current computing technology will not be able to support what we need, the demands that we have. And quantum computing will be there to help us advance AI. And that's an important message. Now, do we want to wait for that to happen? Do we want to wait for the point in time whereby we're reaching the limits of classical computing before we start looking at other possibilities? The answer is probably no. We need to start to look at what is possible. So imagine we put all this together, right? Quantum feeding into AI, feeding into robotics. What can we create? A very powerful technology, right? And innovation in the future, at least for midterm onward, must look at the possibility of combining these three technologies together. Well, computing power beyond just a classical flip-flop, right? Enhanced intelligence inherited by new improved methods, increased dexterity and omnipresence capability to augment human capability and potential. And that will bring us to the next, well, if I could use the word, world. So do expect that the next generation robots will have quantum computing power, will have good inherited intelligence, right, passed on from time to time, period to period, and more importantly, their ability to move around, right, the dexterity will be of huge enhancement, huge improvement. Plus, what I see possible is remote efficiencies. Today, with COVID-19 in our state, what we face and what we suffer is really our inadequate infrastructure to support it. But with quantum behind, I'm very sure remote working will be a huge plus. So when will this happen? How fast will this happen? Well, let me show you two pictures. On the left, what you see here is the year 1990. Sorry, I beg your pardon, 1900. Fifth Avenue, New York City. Can you spot the automobile in this picture? Yes, of course. Right? That's one right there. That's an automobile. And the rest are purely human pedestrians, and the rest are horse carriages. Let's fast forward 13 years. Same place, Fifth Avenue. Look at the street. Mostly automobiles. Mostly automobiles. Right? And it just takes the world 13 years to move from one automobile on 5th Street to a street that's crowded with automobiles in just 13 years. And that's a century ago, right? With today, our understanding of technology and quantum computing, imagine what that would translate into. I guess The question that lies ahead is, what is the innovation challenge we would consider? And I've put forward a couple of proposals to the International Alliance, because I think the International Alliance should play a part, right, in trying to understand new technology, not to just look at what one country has done, what one research team has done, and try to do stepwise improvements to it. We'll never get very far. We need to have a proper understanding of emerging technologies, incorporate that into our innovation works, and build the next generation power, robotic power. So, I guess Al shared this picture earlier, and that is what I believe the next generation robotic intelligence will cover. Human-like understanding and behaviors to do things, right? It has, the next generation robotic technology has to extend and expand human abilities, right? It has to have very powerful human-like interactions, and more importantly, contextual personalization. And all this sums up to the fact that we will have a lot more capability, and we see technology being able to augment human capability and potential. And APARA stands up for that proposition, that technology will augment human capability and potential. And to do so, there are a lot of things to consider, right? One is the human-like interaction. Two is individuality and inclusiveness. Hence, right, we can look at a few things, right? The human-robot interface is a very important piece. And that's the reason why, right at the beginning of this webinar series, we wanted to partner with Oxford to look at human-machine collaboration. Because we believe if we were to build the next generation robots, it is not just making a step improvement. We have to look beyond our current boundaries, right? Digital health, digital care is one of the things that we talk about. What we didn't deal with was agriculture and food security. Well, somebody once said to me, well, agriculture, Singapore doesn't have it. Some countries don't need it, right? Some countries are probably don't need the automation to be in place. But what about food security? How about ensuring that at the end of the day, with technology, you can provide for the food as and when you need, and not be dependent on disruptions to the economy. So let's go into a few pieces, right? We talk about cognitive emotions. What does that mean? There's one whole aspect of understanding the theory of the mind. How does the mind think? In order for us to build good intelligence in the robots, we must understand how our mind thinks. The cognitive theory of emotion, right, is a very important study, and hence the merger or integration of hardcore technology and engineering with psychology and sociology perhaps, right, will bring us to the next level of being able to build better robots to support us. Is it possible? Yes. Look at what researchers are looking at today, right? To build components of how this theory can be incorporated into the next robot, right? And the robot would be a lot more human-friendly. Well, this will lead to a few innovations, right? One is ability for the robot to understand how human behaves. And that will be a very interesting innovation. The social intelligence of human-robot interaction, right? We see something, we understand whether it's half full or half empty. It should not be measured by the actual accuracy. It is really a estimation, a perception, and how does human understand the perception? The whole space of intelligence, from sensing to comprehension to action and then learning to become better, is going to be heavily enhanced, and collaborative robots will play a very important role here. And finally, we could possibly see, right, the arrival of an intuitive co-worker, a co-worker that can work with us just like another human being, but with a different set of skills. And still, the humans will be the master of technology. Let's look at another space. All right, I talked about individuality and inclusiveness. robots can drive inclusiveness in the workplace in possibly three ways. And this is what I'll just probably mention, and probably there are others. Today, right, people with disadvantage has a handicap. They have a disadvantage, right? I've seen workers with wheelchair going to the automated door, and the normal human being will be able to tap their pass on a particular sensor to open the door. But if you're on a wheelchair, your height is different, right? So that makes it difficult for you to gain entry. Robots can play a part. And this is where I talk about the possibility of creating omnipresence robots that are a lot more intelligent, that can support disability inclusion, that can support remote work experience to a more advanced level, and to allow, right, a whole redefinition of education. We're not just talking about a telepresence robot. We're talking about a lot more computing power to enable personalization and inclusiveness. So those are two possible ideas that we can do, we can work on. But the question is, well, can we do it? Is it possible to achieve that? Let me give you a quote here from Max Planck, the father of quantum physics. He said, and I quote, "When you change the way you look at things differently, from a different perspective, you find that the things you look at change." And that's how inventors are able to create new things. When the apple dropped on Newton's head, right? Just an apple. But he looked at it, he asked questions. And guess what? He came up with a lot of theory. When Henry Ford was trying to create a new product, everybody was riding a horse. Do we create a faster horse? Do we train a faster horse? No, he looked at it very differently. And he created the automobile. When Steve Jobs was trying to look at the portable phone, at that point in time, it was a huge break, I remember. If his intention was just to miniaturize that portable phone, today, mobile apps will have no place in our new smart city. The phone is basically a node, a device, but the amount of things that go into that phone is quite amazing, and you and me would understand that. So I quote again Max Planck, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So I see this as the future, right? Not necessarily more machines than human, but possibly yes, because the human will have to lead the machines to perform our functions. The humans and robots will collaborate in the next generation organization. And that was what I started with. And innovations in AI and robotics will play a big part in bringing man and machine together. The future work is a good discussion, right? Technology over the years, right, have created more jobs than it has destroyed. And we should all remember that, right? We've created a lot more jobs than we required. The messages that we see around technology, automation, robots displacing the workforce is because we didn't want to accept technology, we didn't want to understand technology, and didn't want to eventually become the masters of technology. If we're able to do all that, right, there are a lot more jobs that we created. We must be prepared to change, we must be prepared to embrace the change and take on the challenge. AI and robotics is fast moving and fast becoming part of our lives. We must embrace to emerge stronger. The future of work will call for a higher degree of human-machine collaboration. And I believe human species ultimately, and I repeat again, masters of technology. Well, keep this in mind. While AI today cannot think, we all know that, right? They're not smart enough to do and create new things. But it can transform jobs. As it transforms jobs, we need to take on new jobs in order to work together with AI and robots in the new world. I will end off with this particular slide. I believe if we can envision it, we humans can create it. We will find the path to human thriving, and that's what we are here for. Okay, with that, I thank all of you for your attention and your time. Appreciate any feedback. Once again, as we end off AIBotics 2020, we look forward to you joining us again in AIBotics 2021 with a very different flavor. We'll talk about it towards the end of the webinar. Thank you very much, everyone, and over to you again, Elle.
Thank you so much, Oliver, and thank you for your presentation. So